We are at our last but very exciting keynote address for the day. I want to just shout everyone out for still being here, being present, and still connecting with the energy. It feels really, really good in here. We have Richard K. Williams, who will be joining us, is the co-founder and co-inventor of Hypersphere AI. He will enlighten us on the topic that we've been talking about throughout the day. Our session is whole organ photobiomodulation, state-of-the-art non-invasive modality, transforms therapeutic options in modern healthcare. We know that whole organ photobiomodulation, or by its acronym WOPP, is a non-invasive therapeutic modality that reshapes medical treatment possibilities. Please join me in welcoming Richard K. Williams to the stage.
Well, thank you for staying and all the way to the end. I know we have dinner coming after this, so I'll try not to take too long. What I'd like to talk about is a therapeutic technology, photobiomodulation. And in particular, we're taking a new approach to that and being able to treat whole organs in one session. Rather than scanning or moving a probe around, you're able to treat a patient in a very effective way. So, first of all, do we want to be healthy? Yeah. Well, don't get sick. The best way to recover from illness is not to get ill. And wellness is a way of life. And I think everybody in this room is definitely a believer in that. We all do whatever we have to do to be in the right frame of mind. And we also know people who are happy are more likely to stay healthy. And when they get sick, they're recover faster. And specifically, we've learned that cancer patients have a much higher survival rate if they have a good attitude when they go into the sessions. So it's very important. Of course, you have to live healthy, nutrition, exercise, vitamins, and so on. But now we're learning that's not the only way to help our body and help our health. Another one is light, and we're going to get to that. And I know people like sunlight, they like sun tanning, but this is quite different. So, unfortunately, sickness and pain is part of life. There's hundreds of different diseases, etiologies, and they manifest themselves in thousands of symptoms. And doctors are now left trying to figure out what is the cause, what is the underlying condition. And then with drugs, they're oftentimes left with very narrow solutions that I can give you a drug that fixes this problem, but it won't fix that problem. And so there's this very complex arena which doctors are now facing and trying to advise patients. Specifically, you have all the pathogens which seem to be growing, the list grows every year for infection, all kinds of accidents, organ dysfunction, some of which could be related to the very food we eat, and then chronic diseases, which are related to lifestyle and also coming from illnesses. So if you just take a look at a disease trajectory, this is a COVID-19 example, we found that the progression of the disease had a respiratory infection, then it caused an immune response, and then sometimes it caused hyperimmunity where the body over-responded, and then the late phase outcome differed dramatically. Some people just had a mild sore throat and it went away. They're virtually asymptomatic. Some mild cases, they started to get a little bit of fever, it went away. Others got seriously ill, and they recovered, but they were left with some chronic condition. And others had organ failure and didn't survive the entire infection. So what did we learn? Disease presentations depended not just on the disease, but strongly on the patient's comorbidities, their health condition. Okay, so that comes back to if we're healthy, we have a better chance of surviving something like this. But strangely, pharmacological modalities, drugs, and vaccines exhibited very different efficacies and many different side effects, something we didn't really expect. We're not used to it being that different. Invasive modalities, such as mechanical ventilation, as soon as somebody was put on a mechanical ventilator, our doctors said their survival rate dropped dramatically. So you want to stay away from any invasive modality as much as possible. And unfortunately, in today's world, the pathogens evolve faster than the scientists can find what they are or how to combat them. And especially single-strand RNA viruses, they're problematic because they build a platform for immunization, and as soon as they immunize you, the RNA component mutates, the proteins change, and it can't identify the virion anymore. Also, there's many genome-specific medicines, not just vaccines, and they also lose their efficacy as soon as there's any mutation. But worst of all, what we learned in the COVID crisis was when the hospitals were overrun, only the most serious ill patients got treated. Other people had to stay home. Basically, they said, we can do nothing, we can't bring you in, and even if we did bring you in, we might make you worse because we have no therapeutics for you. So they had to fend for themselves. So this begs the question of what do we do when we can't get help? So if you look at it, there's surgery, and anything that was invasive is very problematic. And then the pharmacology industry is, well, we can solve the problem, okay? But again, aside from the fact that the drugs and the therapeutics didn't work, they weren't able to even access the patients. So you were left kind of on your own. People used nutrition and vitamins and other means, homeopathic means, to try and reduce their chance of becoming infected or to shorten the time of an infection. And then we introduced another area, which is a few companies, about 3 of us, promoted using non-ionizing radiation, that's red and infrared light primarily, to stimulate an immune response to help the body fight the contagion. So both the nutrition and the biophysical mechanism of light gives you a homeostatic, that is a pro-health effect on the body. But the light can also be truly therapeutic. However, the pharmaceutical industry has been fighting this as becoming a successful modality for, well, 30, 40 years, okay? And fortunately, we are now starting to get the respect that we deserve and getting into a lot of peer-reviewed papers talking about all the different modalities that we are able to address. So this is a whole new field, and it's called photobiomodulation. So if you look at coming back to being healthy, homeostasis is basically where the body regulates multiple parameters like temperature, blood sugar versus insulin, and it regulates blood pressure, it regulates pro and anti-inflammatory cytokines, which is part of our immune system, sodium, calcium, potassium, the heart rate, the acidity, the water retention or edema. And when you get an injury or disease, the normal process is you go through a healing process. But people who have immunodepression, and some of them did coming into COVID, had no healing, and the outcomes were poor. Strangely, if you say, okay, I'm going to take some non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, because it's an inflammatory disease, it turns out that if you took NSAIDs, it took 3 times longer to recover than if you didn't. So that means that the pharmaceuticals were creating another problem by postponing or interfering with the inflammation process. And then the other extreme is where the virus outsmarted the body, you went into hyperimmunity and you had a cytokine storm, or worse yet, it kept coming and going and you get into an autoimmune condition where your body begins to regularly attack itself. And arthritis is an example of one of those types of diseases. So is inflammation bad? Well, when you get an infection or you get an injury, you get inflammation. So if it's bad, why do we have it? Well, it's part of our immune defense. It's also part of the healing process. And it's also a part of something called pyroptosis, which is essentially an inflammatory death of a cell so that the body can prevent a contagion from sequestering our cells and using them against us. So if you're going to invade my cell, I'm going to destroy it before you can use it against me. Okay? Unfortunately, when it does that, sometimes it releases the viral byproduct, and then it still causes a problem. But that's inflammation is part of that role. But it's also a natural part of healing. Inflammation starts with neutrophils, leukocytes trying to remove contagion. Then it starts handing off the work to proliferating new cells, contracting injuries, laying down collagen, and then turning around, growing new arteries, growing new nerves, cleaning up all the mess, the cellular debris from the entire construction project, and removing the type 3 collagen and putting down type 1 collagen until finally you return back to the health state. So this is the normal process, and inflammation is fundamentally part of it. So a little inflammation is good because that's where we were healed. Too little, no healing, no immunity. Frequent, autoimmune disease. Too much, dangerous or deadly. Hyperinflammation and this dreaded cytokine storm. How best to manage it? Limit the severity and limit the duration so that you can cause less damage to the organs. So one way to do that is through light. Now, if you look at light, if you look at the human physiology, not by the systems, but what they do, the musculoskeletal system is mobility, locomotion, and support. The visceral organs and all the endocrine organs, including the neuroendocrine organs, are part of the metabolism and immune system. But the circulatory system, even though it helps distribute immunity and carriers, it is primarily oxygen and nutrition. It is the supply chain. And then the nerves is sensing and cognition. But the sensing is not only sensing our environment, it's sensing our organs. It's determining, I have a problem in my lung, something has to be done about it. So there's very complex interactions here. So what actually controls these? What's common for all those elements? There's really only one element that's totally common, because the cells are different. They're differentiated. After they leave the stem cell phase, they become different. But what they don't change is the mitochondria. There's somewhere between 1 to 5,000 mitochondria in every cell. And in those mitochondria is a light-sensitive molecule, a chromophore they call it, called cytochrome C oxidase. And it, not your nucleus, is in charge of your life. You might think your nucleus is running you, but the mitochondria are actually running you. It controls your metabolism. It decides when a cell is scheduled to death, which is the apoptosis. It decides when a cell is injured, necrosis. It decides when an inflammatory death should occur, which is the pyroptosis. It also confers innate ability with T cells, macrophages, cytokines. And it controls gene expression by releasing the nuclear transcription factors that control the protein synthesis. So 100,000 trillion mitochondria make you up. That's unbelievable by any standard. So one of the jobs is power. 3 million old career of mitochondria. Throughout history, humans depend on machines to survive. Our machine is the mitochondria. And here's an example. This is very interesting. It's basically a membrane inside your mitochondria, and it has the outer wall to the cell and the inner wall of the mitochondria. And on this is these proton pumps, and they act exactly like a hydrogen fuel cell. What they do is they separate the hydrogen from the electron, and they put them on different sides, they put them on different sides of the membrane, and when they build up enough voltage here, then the proton comes through and it generates ATP. And that ATP is the energy of life. So when you see a hydrogen fuel cell, you can think, okay, I have one of those in me, in every mitochondria. And so we are essentially a battery. And the more light it gets, the higher the membrane potential, the higher the ATP production rate, and the faster the metabolism. Sorry. So, does it have enough energy? Well, here are the molecules of life: ATP, fat, alcohol, proteins. Okay? Heat doesn't have enough energy. So you can sit in the sauna all day, but you will not make new ATP because it doesn't produce enough energy. Anything over 3 electron volts, which is 400 nanometers, that's in the ultraviolet, that can cause damage to your DNA. So in between, you have red light, near infrared light, and the visible light. And of those, the red and the near infrared is what drives the mitochondria. And it has roughly 2 to 3 times as much energy as the ATP that it's generating. So basically, you can feed it light and it makes energy. Not from sugar, but from light. So we think of photosynthesis only being done by plants, but this is direct conversion of light into energy to power you. But the amazing thing is, if you get sick, then what happens is you get an imbalance between the oxidants and the antioxidants, and you get into a disease state. Your body becomes slightly acidic, and the cells don't work well, and bacteria like to invade those weak sisters, those weak cells. So this is far away from homeostasis, where you have a balance of the two. So when you use light and hit the cells, you get an immune boost if you're sick, and it will increase the cytotoxic effects to kill the bacteria or the contagion. But if you're already in an oxidative state, if you're already infected, then it will reduce the amount of inflammatory cytokines. So this is not like a drug where it either increases or decreases the amount of inflammatory cells. It actually modulates it to the middle. And so pharmaceutical industry cannot achieve what Mother Nature already knows how to do. And I won't go through it, but it basically uses your T cells and your macrophages to create both types, and they constantly stay in balance. The other thing is that the ATP, along with nitric oxide and reactive oxide species, then control the nucleus, and that controls the proteins that are running your cell. So those are growth factors, repair factors, phagocytes. So everything is basically being modulated by the cytochrome C getting the light. And if you do a treatment, basically you find that within 10 minutes of the treatment, you get neuromodulation. That is the pain, you get an analgesic effect. You shut off the pain receptors the same way as analgesic does. But it's doing it by basically telling the nerves to ignore the signal coming in. Then, 20 minutes in, it starts releasing these reactive oxide species, and they act like a disinfectant. We call it an anti-infective. It's not necessarily antibiotic because it works against viruses. It also works against yeasts and molds. Okay, and then within 6 hours you get a spike in ATP. Now you've got all this energy. If you feel tired, you do the treatment on your liver, and 6 hours later, you feel like the ever-ready bunny. You're ready to rock and roll. But it takes 24 to 36 hours for that to be turned into proteins. And so that's the real repair mechanism. So no reason to do light therapy on the same organ 2 days in a row. No reason. Because it won't even be done with the first treatment for a day to a day and a half. Then you keep doing it 1 to 3 weeks and you're done, and then you'll be back to homeostasis. So what are the benefits? Well, it's agnostic to the injury. It improves metabolism and circulation. It increases tissue and blood oxygen. It kills invading pathogens. It kills and replaces the weak and defective cells. It reduces or accelerates that inflammatory time so you get faster healing, and it removes the cellular debris. Finally, it combats hyperinflation and cytokine storms, and it upregulates or downregulates, depending on what your body needs, the immune response. So it is smarter than the doctors are, because they can't possibly know all the things that are happening. They're guessing what's happening in your various organs. So one challenge, though, is if you use a little laser probe, you can't possibly cover a whole organ. You might double treat one area, and you might miss another area. And areas that you didn't treat could reinfect the whole organ. So if you don't treat it all, then you don't know what the long-term prognosis is. So the solution is to cover the whole area at one time. And here is a device that has a programmable system. It has energy at different frequencies, and it covers up to 1,200 square centimeters. So you can do a one-touch session where it will run through a whole sequence of programs algorithmically, and it allows you to target specific tissues, specific organs, all hands-free, and you don't have to do anything. Basically, you put the pads on, the nurse goes into the next room, treats the next patient. She doesn't have to hang around. It's not like a probe where she has to sit there. And during the COVID era, this was a real problem, because anything where the nurse had to sit with the patient was very problematic, because there was almost guaranteed that they were going to be infected. So this way, we treated about 75 patients, and nobody got infected during the height of the ancestral surge in COVID, which was 2020. Consistency. Because it's covering the whole area, then it doesn't depend on the therapist. There's no missing spots. There's no overdosing. It's precisely controlled power, energy, and it's safe. It's eye safe. You can put it over your eyes, and it won't hurt your eyes. In fact, it will help you with your vision. And here you can see examples for the face, across the chest, or across the back, covering all of the lungs. So there is no doubt that it wasn't treated. And we've had doctors in treating COPD, ARDS, COVID, all doing all these different therapies. The key is that it's got to penetrate. So the pads must bend to the body. If they're only an inch apart, doesn't work. It'll work on your skin, you'll still look pretty, but you'll still be sick because it will not get into your lungs. So you might look good, but you still feel lousy, which is not a good thing. And the funny thing is, because we have to put the light up very bright to get into the deep organs, that actually put too much dose in the top layer. That doesn't hurt it just doesn't help. So actually the efficacy is moved down into this subcutaneous layer, but it's still getting all the way down into the visceral organ. And this paper is being published in the European Medical Association Journal. So you can contact us, so we can give you all the links to all these papers. The other thing is that our body, like our ears, we can hear certain frequencies. Our cells can react to certain frequencies. And the nerves can work up to 3 kilohertz. It's amazing that you can hear 20 kilohertz, because the fastest nerve in our body can only transmit at 3 kilohertz. So go figure that one out. That's pretty tricky. But basically, if you pulse it above 3 kilohertz, the nerve will just basically shut off and say, I give up. and then it doesn't transmit signal, which means the pain goes away. It's not that the cause of the pain is gone, it's just disconnected, which is the same thing that Tylenol does. But if you move down to a lower frequency, now you start to stimulate the vasodilation of the arteries. And even lower frequency, you can actually rebuild bone. And we have pictures of a dog whose bone was completely broken in half, and within a week it grew back. So it's really amazing. But it takes low frequency. If you did high frequency, nothing would happen. And then in between is a different category. That's the brain, because the brain is it's not a clock system, but it has natural frequencies. So if you're not treating it like tissue, but treating it like a processor, if you synchronize the light to certain wavelengths or certain pulse rates, like for example, 40 hertz, this is the frequency that's dominant when we're thinking. If you have somebody with brain fog, you treat them with 40 hertz, 1 or 2 sessions, their brain fog will be gone indefinitely. It won't come back. But some injuries are autoimmune, so they keep coming back. So those people will have to have repeated treatments. So all these are targets for photobiomodulation, but we don't really need to do that. We can take 2 or 3 pads and cover everybody in just a few sessions. And if you put these pads right down the central core, we call it the shell core, named after the guy who came up with this idea. It covers virtually all the major organs of the immune system, including part of the vagus nerve, the major lymph nodes, the thymus, the parathyroid, the stomach, spleen, and liver. You get a piece of all of them. The brain is different. You have to put them on different angles depending on which part of the brain you're trying to get. And the hardest one is the neuroendocrine system in the inside, which is the pituitary, hypothalamus, pineal core. So you have to generally do it through the face. And fortunately, we still are able to modulate it. A few case studies. So one was that if somebody gets an infection like SARS or COVID, it goes to the sinuses, then it transfers into the lungs. It doesn't like to stay in the sinuses because it can't amplify itself. So it gets in the lungs and it starts this cytokine storm, and then it causes endothelial inflammation of the entire circulatory system, but it also causes epithelial inflammation in all your organs, and then that starts to deregulate your neuroendocrine, causing organ dysfunction and central nervous system dysfunction. So you want to get it treated before it gets to that. If it does, now you're in a different category. Now you got long COVID. Now you need to treat the visceral organs with one set of programs and the neurological with another set of programs. You can't treat them uniformly anymore because they're not the same disease anymore. So this is very interesting, but we've treated 350 patients and 346 recovered within 3 days. So it's really no drugs. No drugs. So this is really outstanding result. And you can see if you take the 5 stages going, stage 6 would be where you go on to a hospitalization. So stage 5 would be the worst you could be before you have to go to the hospital. You can see the red bars they recover within 1 to 5 sessions, but the earlier stages, stage 1, stage 2, mild, you get 101 degree fever, you get it for 2 days, 3 days, 2 sessions, you're done, you're recovered. So this is a really outstanding result. And you can see the lungs clear from a lot of glass ground opacity all the way down to essentially recovered. And here's a patient who, as soon as you take him off of oxygen, boom, his SpO2 drops. Put him back on it, okay, it's back. Okay, do a treatment, went up to 100%. Okay, but it takes time to recover. So another treatment. Then took him off, okay, came down to the limit. One more treatment, discharged from the hospital. No need for oxygen supplementation, never saw the patient again. You can't follow up on long COVID. But anyone that we ever treated early enough never got long COVID. And most of all, the C-reactive protein measures the inflammation. So Somebody was getting sick, they took a whole bunch of drugs, they got it back down, then the drugs didn't work anymore. Then boom, 9. That's bad trouble for inflammation, because C-reactive protein is a direct measurement of inflammation in the body. One treatment down to 3.5. After this session, down to 0.65. So full recovery. This is out of a hospital in Taiwan. The other thing we do is treat the brain. We had a lot of people with long COVID had brain problems, brain fog, emotional problems. So we did transcranial treatment. And you can see before and after. This is the circulation. And you can see that basically it's a temperature or measure of the circulation. There's very poor circulation before the treatment, and afterwards much greater in circulation. But this is the one that's most interesting. The connectivity across the hemispheres improved dramatically. And their depression and mood swings and malaise went away when this happened. So this is pretty profound. And this is only the beginning. We think there's many, many more things that can be done neurologically with this technology. Lastly, we had a patient who had stroke, and he was completely paralyzed. They were going to discharge him to a convalescent home, and he would never walk again. And instead, we started treating him. And by 14 days, he was walking with aid. By 22 days, he passed the sit test, where you have to bend down without falling into the chair, which is not easy if you've had a stroke. And then was able to walk up and down steps. And by day 52, he could do the test where they make the leg move laterally, like on an abacus, to see if you can control the lateral movement. And he's able to do that. So he was discharged fully recovered. So, broad spectrum of uses. Start with skeletal and sports, chiropractic, sprains, strains, tears, joint pain, myositis, arthritis, edema, stiffness, physical therapy and rehabilitation, and age-related mobility and muscle atrophy problems. And then it's also used by the Chinese swim team to win the Olympics in Rio. And they did it for stretching, warm-up, and what we call warm-downs, which is it's a kind of cool-down warm-up between two events so that they don't get all the way down to being cool again before they do the next event. Elasticity, flexibility, and then to do cramps and recovery. Visceral organs, cardiovascular disease, inflammatory disease. We talked about COVID-19, but we also treat lupus, Lyme, inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's, liver ailments. Infectious diseases, we've done a lot of H1N1 and other bird flus. Respiratory distress, cardio-obstructive pulmonary disorder and acute respiratory distress. And hormonal issues, very many hormonal issues, including those involved with menopause or involved with some kind of age-related effects. A new study starting on immunodepression and on the kidney. Neurological, Alzheimer's, dementia, we have a lot of success with that. MTBI concussion, one of our docs is a team doctor for the San Francisco 49ers. He's treated 200 MTBI cases with essentially all but one successfully recovered. Even long time after they got the injuries, he was able to remove the scar tissue and restore movement. Stroke, spinal cord injury. There, if the injury is too bad and the nerves are too far apart, they won't grow back together. If they're close, then they will. Neuropathies, long COVID, brain fog, neuroendocrine dysfunction, and new studies on depression, anxiety, Parkinson's, and neurogenesis. So I got to thank all the different doctors who provide all the independent data, because none of the data is taken by us. It's all taken by doctors. And they're from all over the world, from Dubai to Asia to across America. So anyway, I'd like to thank Heal and all of you for staying to listen to me.
Wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you. There are so many things I want to say, but I have about 2 minutes to say it before I got to let you all go.
Sorry.
The first thing I want to say, there is never a need to apologize for existing, for taking up space, because this is a place to do it. So I want to say that to everyone. For me, no apologies, Ned, because what you did was you spoke to my heart. I'll just share this very briefly while you're still here standing next to me. My father, while he didn't pass away from Parkinson's, he was fighting Parkinson's for 11 years. And his Parkinson's is a direct consequence of being a political prisoner in South America. This is the 50th year anniversary of the dictatorship that shifted his life and our life. What you did was reminded me why I was a biochemist, just like him. And life intervened when I was 20 and I became a teacher. It was my purpose at that time to be like him. Everything that you are studying and you're doing is exactly what he was doing up until the last days that he was here. He was on ESPN in Chile because he talked about the need to oxygenate the body and the significance of that. So he had a whole radical treatment for COVID, but because he lived in South America and I wasn't there with him and I didn't have my PhD yet, there was just so many little factors that he couldn't get the spotlight he needed, right, to share his discoveries with the world. He's a doctor. And someone mentioned earlier today that some of the regrets that people have, I think it was Eric or Ryan when I was discussing, we were having our interview, the regrets that we have sometimes is not living our purpose, right? When we get to the end years or our transition, or passing on the wisdom that we learn on our journeys. And you just took me back to my passion and my love for biology. Like, I finally felt it after 20 years.
And all the institutions and companies whose has an interest in not having us communicate.
That's correct.
So this is beautiful when we can communicate.
So you helped heal me and my dad today. So thank you for that. Whew. When I say I feel like a profound connection to everything I have heard today, because I am exactly where I'm meant to be in my life. And I have said yes to this calling, yes to doing this work, yes, just like all of you have had to say yes. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, from everywhere that, whatever higher power you believe in, there is more than synergy going on here. There's synchronicity, there's divine timing, and we are all experiencing it collectively together. So thank you so much, Richard Williams. Thank you for Light MD for being here, for offering me a session as well, because I will need this. And I want to continue doing this role, yet also honoring the need that I have myself for self-care, right, as I'm doing everything that we're doing today. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And in closing, in my 55 seconds that I have left, I just want to congratulate all of you. I want to celebrate each and every one of you, because I truly see your hearts. I see your auras, and there's some of you I've yet to have a moment to chat with, but I know that we will have opportunity throughout the weeks. But I've been writing down in my notes, like, who I know will be dream teams together. And while I can't shout everyone out now, I do hope that Mark G., Dr. Ryan, Richard Williams, Jeff, Dr. Westcott, and Dr. Natanya get together to form a phenomenal team. They're just going to figure it out, and I already know the other teams that are going to be working together. So one of my gifts is being a seer. Some of you may know what that means, and it's okay, we can talk about it another day. Yet I see so much potential in this room with the things that some of us are saying we need. The need is here, like the partners are here, the people to collaborate with are here. Thank you all for a great first day. Today was just day one of the first inaugural HEAL conferences, and we hope to have many, many more of these. So please let your colleagues know, please post about this. Let's get the word out, and let's all heal together. We'll be seeing everyone tomorrow morning. Please feel free to take pictures, connect, and self-care. Love you all.
Okay.